Kenai for the Kenai. My name is Aaron, and as always, I'm here with Coburn and Eric. And today we have another awesome recovery story. A very special guest, the Ninja. Ninja, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good.
Doing good? All right.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So today we're going to kind of dive into your story here. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's see. I guess the best place to start is always the beginning.
True. Yeah.
And just like anybody else, well, not anybody else, but most people in addiction, there's some shady things in my past that, molestation and whatever that usually sends you down that road of, needing something else or whatever and numbing yourself out and whatnot. Anything that I can remember was like from a long time ago, from being very young to babysitters and stuff and whatnot. But yeah, other than that, like, I think the first time I used drugs and alcohol and everything was about like 15.
15.
And other than that, like, I had a pretty good childhood. Both my parents worked for the most part.
Was that, you grew up here in Soldotna or
Yep,
Kenai?
born and raised.
Okay.
Born and raised. And my dad worked on the slope. My mom, worked all kinds of places. They both made fairly good money. We didn't have everything we wanted, but we didn't go without too much.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the difference in my story is, like, I wasn't raised around drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in a church, and, I didn't have any taste of the world really till I was, like, probably around 15.
Okay. And was that when you did you go to a public high school?
Yeah, I went to SoHi.
Okay.
And
is that when you started to get your first taste?
Yeah, so that's actually the first time I smoked weed was with some friends from church.
Sure.
It started with cigarettes, I think that's kind of like one of the first things kids do, like...
Yeah, no, I think that's like a popular myth is that, like, that stuff, isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
It is,
It's
I mean,
everywhere.
maybe not all as much, or maybe in different forms to some extent, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. First we started sneaking cigarettes at, like, church or whatever, Sunday school, and then...
How old are you then?
I was like 14, 15, right in there.
Yeah.
And then that, built into smoking weed.
Sure.
And I'm that kind of person, like, I like to work, and I work hard for my money, so I never like to spend my hard-earned money on drugs or alcohol.
So you started pushing some.
Yeah, so right off the bat, like, I found it was easy to buy. I think the first thing I bought was like a bag.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I could sell bowls and,
Yeah.
and buy another bag.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it started out like that. I mean, within, like, I think a week, I was buying an ounce, and then that's how it all started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I became dependent on it. It was something I enjoyed, like, with that all starting, like, my motivation for school and everything went really downhill. I think I was flunking, like, 2 classes. So at the end of my sophomore year, they were telling me that I wasn't going to have enough credits to be a junior. They had just, I think it was the year before, they had just made this rule or whatever where, like, if you don't have the credits to be in the next grade, like, I was going to have a locker in the sophomore hallway in my 3rd year of high school.
Dang.
So I was like, this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my buddies was on probation, had a probation officer, and he had told me about this military school he was going to go to.
Mm-hmm.
at the time, like, I had my mom look into it and went and did an interview and got into this military school, like, during my junior year.
Was that like a Alaska Military like Youth
Yep,
Academy or
Alaska
something like that?
Military Youth Academy.
Okay.
So when my friends were starting their junior year, I was working as a dishwasher waiting for military school.
Mm-hmm.
And by this time, like, I had already pretty much been a regular user of cocaine. I had tried methamphetamine. I dropped acid. And when we couldn't find cocaine or anything else, we would, like, get my friend's little brother's Ritalin pills.
Was that like because of the different kinds of people you dealt with, or did you just kind of fall in with the wrong crowd?
Well,
from that point
so
on, or?
because of my, I was like a really fat kid in high school, and like I only had maybe a couple friends. One of them was like straight up druggy. His dad was a drunk, and his uncle was a drunk. He lived with his grandma, but his other uncle was like a retired state trooper. He had like money and whatnot, but just anytime we'd ever go to a party or whatever, like, he was the reason we were getting kicked out.
Yeah.
My other friend was like me. He worked, had a job. He was more kind of like a jock, but didn't play sports, you know, but hung around that kind of crowd.
Yeah.
And so, like, we were all really tight. All my other friends were, you know, band members. I hung around a lot of music, and I mean, around music is drugs, and yeah, that they all kind of like lived in my area, so I mean, it was no problem just to, even back then, like, I could walk up the road and buy weed. You know, I was selling weed all the time. We were always drinking, partying, like, it was a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like it really becomes like, especially if you're like in high school and, you know, selling to keep your own supply. Like the friends that I had in high school that sold, I mean, that sold often, you know, that, you know, whether it be buying O's or buying QPs, whatever. Like, they're just they're from Target, then they're to this gas station, then they're to this gas station, and they're, you know, school ends, or maybe they don't go to school, and they're just from one selling spot to another selling spot to another one, and it's just, you know, they go to this gas station, sell a little weed, maybe smoke a bowl, drive around the block, go to the next place, and they're just selling and smoking and, hanging, for lack of a better word, you know, all day, every day, and they're, you know, if you're in high school and you know, whether you have a job or if your parents are like, you know, you're living with your parents and just kind of sneaking all this by somehow, like, it's pretty easy to do it. So, yeah, it seems like that it quickly, especially if it's kind of your business, you know, it is your job, like, it becomes quite a lifestyle pretty quickly.
Yeah, and like, you know, there was times there where, like, you know, we didn't have the connect or whatever, and so, like, you're working, you know, I got into trouble a lot.
Did you get in some legal trouble, or were you kind of skirting around that?
So, because, like, you know, the jobs we would get would be, like, canneries or whatever.
Yeah,
like, after cannery work, you're always going out getting faced, and then, like, I think
Work hard, play harder. Kind
yeah,
of thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
we heard that, yeah.
And so that was also a place to make money. You could go get your paycheck, go buy an ounce, go back to the cannery and sell, you know, that ounce in that
Like
day.
that, yeah.
And yeah, you're always looking for that better connection and whoever's going to give you the best deal. And like, one thing I was known for was like my quality. Like, I always looked for the best quality. It was easier to sell. I preferred smoking it myself, so like, that's what I did. And like, I think I caught my first I think it was a DUI I got charged with when I was like 16, maybe 17, somewhere in there. I remember I was working at the cannery. We were partying on the beach. I was sitting in my truck getting ready to take off, but like, had the truck started, didn't like go into gear or anything. Was sitting there. It was like kind of cold out, and all of a sudden this cop like walks up, turns his flashlight on, you know, get charged with a DUI.
Wow.
Lose my license, and then like go through all that I think I had to do like drug and alcohol awareness classes or something. And then a year later, like I think I got my license back after like 9 months is when I, paid all the fines, did all the classes. I get my license back, and then like literally like the same month, the next year, I got a minor in consumption, or a minor in possession, had a keg in the back of my truck. We were driving out to a party, hadn't even tapped it, and like, yeah. Lost my license again.
Wow.
But I had like 3 licenses in 2 years. It was kind of crazy. I think during that time, one of the months I was driving, I got like 12 tickets.
Wow.
Yeah. There was this cop, like,
He knew your car, dude.
yeah. That's what happened was like, I was so like just high profile or whatever that like literally this cop would just pull me over all the time. Officer. I hated that dude for the longest time. But anyways,
Honestly, from his perspective, man, they're like, we know this kid sells drugs.
yeah.
There's a chance he's probably speeding. Like, he's going 66 and a 65. We're pulling him over every time. Because there's a chance he could have something, like.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I wish they would have busted me back then, like,
Sure.
with something, like, it might have, changed my shit around a little bit.
So do you think that the part that didn't change it was that the consequences weren't harsh enough? I mean, you took those classes, but it didn't sound like there was really anything worth holding on to.
I took those drug and alcohol awareness classes, and then a year later took the drug and alcohol rehabilitation classes.
You went to the youth academy then, yeah?
Well,
Or did
yeah, I
you
went to
go?
the youth academy when I was 17. Got out, kind of fucked around for like a couple years, and then I got into the oil field.
Okay.
And so this, after those like last couple alcohol classes, I was so busy working. I had a kid at 20 or 21, and then I worked in the oil field for about 9 years, pretty steady.
Wow.
It was like 7 years straight. Or no, I did like 3 or 4 years straight, and then I took a year off, and then because of UA, or no, the company sold out, and yeah, it was UA. So like they sold out to another company. All we had to do was pass UA for this company to get hired on, and I blew it.
Dang, dude.
Just like that.
Yeah, I was about to ask, in that time span, that 7 years,
Yeah.
what's your substance abuse look like at that point?
Okay, the coke and everything at 17 turned into crack cocaine. Like, and it was weird because like prior to this, I really didn't know what crack cocaine was. And like I had always said like I will never do crack. I always associated it with a needle and blah blah blah. Well, my parents had gotten a divorce, and I think at 16, well, by 17, my mom's like going to the bars. She meets a bouncer, and she came home one day from the bar and like, straight to the kitchen. She's like, hey, blah, 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 try this. And yeah, that's how I started smoking crack. Was, I think me and my girlfriend was like 15 or something. And yeah, we started smoking crack with my mom. And we did that steady for like 5 years, 6 years. Like,
And that's like, from what I hear and what I would think, like crack is like pretty much the most exhausting drug addiction to have, right?
Oh.
Somebody told me like crack just tastes like more.
yeah.
Like you just want more. Like, and that's
Yeah.
it. Like,
That's,
because isn't it like the good rush is what, like 10, 15 seconds? And then
Yeah.
you get like you get a few minutes or something after that?
yeah, and
or
then
something?
it's like straight back to the.
Yeah. I mean, that just sounds exhausting.
Oh, dude, like.
And it's expensive, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially probably up here. I would imagine it's super expensive in Alaska.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Well, because of what I did, like of course, I didn't just go and buy crack all the time.
Right.
Like, I would go buy an ounce of Coke and sell it. All my friends sold Coke whenever they would want to get away. They would come to my house and, you know, we would all hang out. Between me, my girlfriend, and my mom, or me, my girlfriend, and my friend or something, we would smoke anywhere from 5 to 12 grams a night, probably 3 to 5 nights a week.
Jeez.
Dang, bro.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
1 year, and this is kind of like, you know, in the midst of my oil field and whatnot. I dabbled in some like crank then too, but I didn't like the way crank made me feel. Like,
Sure.
you would do crank and then like
Crank is
3
meth,
days-
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like dirty.
Sure.
It's bathtub
Yeah.
meth.
Yeah. Okay.
3 days later, like I would still feel the stuff in my body, and
Yeah.
like after a while of that, like I was just like, dude, I don't want to do this no more. And then like eventually the crack, even though like it still had this huge hold on me, like I seen what it was doing to my family,
Sure.
and I just was trying to keep it away from like me and, you know, my girlfriend and my kid and whatnot. But my mom was so addicted to it that like I would go to work, you know, on the platform or something for like a week or two, and she would be doing it with my girlfriend behind my back, you know. And so like that really ruined this like relationship I had with my mom, because at the time like me and her were like really good friends, like best friends. I would talk to her about everything, and that just, you know, ruined a lot of stuff in my life. My mom didn't finally stop till like a year later, maybe 2 years later, when she the doctors told her she had like heart problems from it.
Right.
And so that was like a blessing in a way. It took me a while to get away from it completely. Like people I hadn't even talked to in like over a year would still knock on my door every once in a while and be like, you know, hey, you want to get high? And so like to look at something that you love so much in the face and then just be like, you know, no, dude, get the out of my house. You know, like you battle yourself a lot of the times.
Right.
And like at this time, like I would say like this is like the most manageable my drug use had ever been. Like I was a fairly well functioning addict. I did fail like a UA for work here and there, but like I had, you know, would go years without doing it. I ended up staying away from coke and crack for quite a few years. I just did weed and mushrooms every once in a while. Pretty much I would do whatever, you know, as long as like it didn't like super inhibit me. Like I didn't really touch heroin or anything like that. Wasn't big into pills. I like to have a good time, but like I didn't like to not be in control, I guess.
Sure.
I pretty much just stayed steady with the weed for quite a while. Over half the people in the oil field that I worked with smoked, so that's how I would continue my selling. Is like payday would come, I'd go buy an ounce, sell it to my friends, and then, you know, and just keep doing that. And eventually it sucked because like this whole time in the oil field, like I had built this really good reputation. I was a hard worker, but like I was like limited by the job I was working. After working there, like this company Udelhoven for 3.5 years, I went from $18 an hour to $19 an hour. And the guy that I was working under, I had told him, I was like, look, dude, I need more money. Like, this is not cutting it. And he told me, he's like, this is all I can do for you. So I was like, see ya, you know. And I went to the shop, I think it was like the next week, talked to another dude, and he had me in there the next day making $34 an hour.
Dang.
Nice.
So I worked this, it was like 34 an hour under one job contract we were doing, and then if I was doing work for this other job, it was like $31.50. I did that for like a month, and I was like, man, like, I'm still smoking weed. Why am I doing this? Like, this is really good money. Like, I can take care of my family on this. I could buy a house, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That month's time went by. I'm on my way to work. My buddy calls me. He says, hey, dude, they're doing UAs in the shop today. And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, I got my synthetic urine right here. Like, not too worried about it. He's like, you can call in sick if you want. And I was like so cocky, have been getting away with this for so long that I was like, I got
bro,
this.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I got this. Like,
Yeah.
I ain't going to miss out on a day of work.
Yeah.
I'm a workaholic,
Yeah.
I think like the strip or something, whatever it was that tells you the temperature on there.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Wasn't
little
working,
strip.
and so like my pee was too hot,
Yeah.
and like he showed me, he like pours most of the pee out of the cup, and then you see the line like drop down because it's black at first, and then it drops down. You see the color go,
Mm-hmm.
and then he takes that little bit of pee in the cup and he like tilts it up on there. It's all, so it was like probably over 100 degrees or something.
Yeah.
And like I'm trying to be like, oh, I'm not feeling good, I'm sick.
I'm sick.
They're like,
I was gonna
no,
call in, but
we need you to pee again. And I was like,
I can't.
all right,
You're like,
I'll
I'm
pee
kinda out,
again.
man.
And like after
Dang.
everybody was distracted, I was just like took off out the door. My foreman called me up. He's like, hey, you need to come pee. And I was like, I'll see you later. That was it. So I ended up taking like a year off of work, pretty much forced.
dude, yeah.
And that's when like I got that last paycheck and I was like, how the am I gonna, pay bills? And I went like,
You still remembered how to sell crack?
I remembered how to do everything. I went
Yeah.
full-time drug dealer.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I had a really good weed connection. At the time, there was like no weed around here. The weed was like wet, skimpy. I brought this stuff to town that was just like, everybody was like, oh my gosh, actually raised the price of weed. At the time, you would buy like a wet bag for, that weighed like 3 grams for $40. And so I brought this really nice cured good weed down here and was selling it for $20 a gram.
Yeah.
So
That
$60
Pineapple Express?
for a 3 gram bag. Yeah. A lot of people know about the weed. It's called the Gulch, and it definitely made an impression.
Mm-hmm.
So after doing that, I was selling like a quarter pound a day at the time in bags.
Yeah.
I would go pick up a half a pound every other day, and I was making bank off of that. And I had all this extra money, so like anything that would come around, like, and plus like everybody smokes weed from every
Socioeconomic
life,
group, yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like you got pill heads that are, don't have money but want your weed, so they're wanting to trade you pills, and then like, meth heads, crack heads, everything. Like I'm
Yeah.
running into all walks of life. So next thing you know, I'm selling mushrooms, Percocets, hydros, fentanyl, DMT, methamphetamine,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like life was literally a frickin' party. Like I was going up to Anchorage buying ecstasy and just anything, any good weed that came around, I would buy that up because I didn't want anybody to with my price.
Yeah, you kind of
that
had the monopoly on that.
I was
yeah.
cornering the market at the time, and like
That's the crazy thing about drugs, man, is like it's no different from any other form of market. Like there's actually a lot of economic principles that are very similar in like a very black market world as there are in just the everyday stock market. You know what I mean? Like nothing's worth what you buy it for. It's only worth what you can sell it for.
Yep.
There's somebody for everything. You just got to find the right market. Once you start hitting the right markets, your money's going to keep coming.
Yep.
And the same thing is as long as you got the best product and you can get the most for the cheapest and still maintain that decent quality, just like any other product, people are going to get it. You know what I mean? They're going to want exactly that. A lot of people don't necessarily need, the average consumer just wants to get high. They don't necessarily care as much about, the quality, as long as they can find something decent, but they can still afford.
Yep.
And that's just like any other market. So it's funny, you hear people that typically, you would think like, oh yeah, they're just this, they're just a drug dealer, this, like they're obviously a drug dealer, they can't be that smart, you know what I mean? But like, that's work, man. Like there's a lot of thought that goes into that stuff. It's no different than a
Yeah, when
lot
they
of
talk
other
about-
salesmen in markets.
When they
It gets
talk,
a lot deeper than that too.
yeah, like when they talk politics and stuff, and you got like everywhere from like a little more regulated market on the left to like a little bit less regulated on the right, and then you get like your libertarian kind of party who's like just leave it all alone. But even then, like as you talk more and more politics, like the only really like free market that exists today is the black market. I mean, that's the only unregulated market. I mean, it's regulated in that if it's caught, it'll be, but as it functions, as long as law enforcement isn't involved, like it's the only like pure and free market. So
yeah, like because I'd run into people that didn't want to pay $60 a bag, but we want a bag anyways. So like I'm like, well, I'm tired of cutting everybody deals.
Sure.
Like everybody else is paying this. I had a guy that would come down from Anchorage and buy 8-10 bags of weed, at a time, and take them up there and sell them for $100 a piece.
Yeah.
So it was like,
Like, bro, just let me sell you ounces.
I'm a businessman. Like, even if like you were my friend, when it comes down to business, like this is business. This is how I'm feeding my family. This is how like, and at the time, like I didn't even have my family.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, if you said life is a total party at this point,
yeah.
Where's your family in that?
So, I had my first kid at like 20.
Right.
And then by this time, like 4 or 5 years had passed, and the mother of my first child was pregnant with my second child. And in this party life, like, I mean, I bartended for like a year. Yeah. So I met like all these people. Like when I quit bartending, I'd go out to the bar a lot, and next thing you know, like I meet a lady, end up leaving my pregnant, girlfriend, baby mama, for this other lady, and like that just completely cut off like me seeing my kids at all.
Sure.
She was really hurt, which I totally understand. Super move of me. But like at the same time, I wouldn't trade that time for anything. I had hurt my back. I got one bulged, two herniated discs, or two bulged, one herniated disc, and I was like laid up for a time. I was on a workman's comp kind of deal. They started pushing painkillers on me. I started taking those just to like function. After like months of those not working, then like I did some physical therapy, but at the time like I had already, gotten pretty addicted. So like, yeah.
So then you went to heroin.
Did you replace that with fentanyl?
Never fully went to heroin. Yeah, I fentanyl, Opanas,
Sure,
Oxys, Roxys. If I didn't have any of that, I mean, literally, I would take 12 to 14 Percocet 10s.
Wow.
One handful every morning.
Dude.
That would keep me through the day. And, I mean, plus everything else we were doing on top of it. I mean, at the time, like, I was probably eating mushrooms 2-3 times a week. Ecstasy a couple times a week. I tried to stay away from the crack until that super awesome deal fell into my lap.
Yeah.
I hadn't touched crack in like 3 or 4 years or something at the time. I think it was like 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And one of the people I sold mushrooms and weed to, like, I found out they had sold coke, and I get this ounce of coke, and it's like, cause like from when I was doing crack and coke, like that was back when like there was halfway decent stuff around here. Like you could get ether-based coke, and just, I mean, it was super good. And then like I had seen it around in that span of time, but it was never worth me like getting back into it, so I just stayed away from it. It was easier that way. But this dude's stuff, like, bagged up, duct taped, bagged up, duct tape, bagged up, duct tape, like on the table, I could smell it. Yeah. And so I think I got that with intentions on selling it, and 23 grams 3 days later, I think I ended up selling like 7 grams out of this ounce of coke.
Wow.
The rest I had smoked. I think one person came over for like a couple hours one day. Another person came over for a couple hours another day. Other than that, like, yeah, the beast.
Yeah.
The beast consumed it.
Yeah.
I always call crack like my demon. Like,
Sure.
that's the thing that'll kill me. It's the only thing I've almost OD'd off of. It completely changed me into a different person.
Really?
Like somebody I did not want to be. It's the only thing like I've, that like completely demoralized my morals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't like to steal from people. I don't, none of that shit. Like, I would steal from people on crack. Like, I would.
Yeah.
I've always been okay with like stealing from stores and stuff, but like when it comes down to like someone who worked hard for their, just families or whatever, like I could not do that. You think about that person, whatever, and like now they're gonna have to buy some more of that or whatever it was, know, and like that's taking food out of their kids' mouths and shit like that. So,
But crack, it just turns off everything.
oh yeah, oh yeah, it was. Especially like when you're high. Once you came down, like
Feel a little
wasn't
bad,
so
have some
bad.
regrets.
Yeah. But like when you were high, like
Game
whatever I needed to do to get high, to stay high,
Game on.
Yeah. And like I was the crack user that like once we had that like I didn't leave it. Like if we were in the kitchen doing it, I was in the kitchen the whole time. I might sit down on the couch for like 3 minutes, smoke a bowl of weed, and then I'd be like, oh, I need another hit, And I mean, so much of my life just like disappeared right there.
Sure.
The good news out of all this is like after that like 3-day vendetta thing or
23
whatever,
grams to the face.
somewhere in there, like I had smoked so much crack cocaine that like I had my fill.
Sure. You're like done.
I was like, I don't need this anymore. I think I got another ounce of coke after that. I might have smoked like a gram or two of it and sold the rest to recover something of the $2,000 I just lost.
Yeah, I was gonna
For
say.
sure.
It sounds like you just took $2,300.
And I haven't touched it again since.
How long ago was that?
That was all back when I was 27.
Sure.
Right after that time, pretty much a one-stop shop for drugs. I'd ran into this older lady. We hooked up. She ran her own daycare. I don't know, like what we had together, like it started making me look at myself, and like I think part of like her too, like the way drugs affected her or whatever, because she had like a messed up back or whatever, like so she would do painkillers too. I started seeing things that I didn't like and I wanted to change about myself. So like I slowly started trying to kick the painkillers, and like I couldn't get under like taking 2 10s a day, and even then by halfway through the day like I was hurting again, and like so I was just trying to like maintain life at the time. And then so one of the things I started doing in there was like I used to get fentanyl patches, and I could buy them for like $70 or whatever. It was cheaper for me to buy a fentanyl patch and wear it for 3 or 4 days than it was to buy the pills for me and her for several days. And anyways, like to shorten this part of the story up, like we used to eat fentanyl patches to get high, and we started eating them so much that like it didn't work anymore. I mean, I'd eat a whole 100 microgram patch, and not get where I wanted to be. And
fentanyl is kind of like the afterwards of heroin. So like your Civil War fact you love so much, where heroin was created to replace morphine, fentanyl was created to do the kind of the same thing, to kind of help people with heroin addiction wean their way off. But this in that same way, they created a more stronger product instead of a weaker product.
Yeah.
So like fentanyl's heroin times, I think it's like
100?
100 times stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 to 100 times stronger than heroin. And so, I mean, that's extra
It's-
dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I didn't want to buy more to eat, what we would do is these patches, they're transdermal. So I would wear it for like an hour or two and then take it off once it starts kicking in your skin and then eat it. And then like that would be like bam, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, my girlfriend, the couple times we had done that, like I didn't like the reaction I was getting from her. Like it was, she would like stop breathing in her sleep and stuff like that. And usually we would do it with alcohol or whatever and all this stuff. And so it's creating fights about, you know, I'm wanting to get off of this stuff, wanting her to get off of it. And, you know, like we're having talks about it and whatnot. Well, one night I went to go get a patch to wear because I was like not eating them anymore at this time. And she wanted a patch to wear, so like, you know, argument, end up getting her one. And then like, I put hers on, I put mine on, we end up going out that night. I think she only drank like 2 beers, maybe 3 beers. And then like, I think she had a duck fart at the bar. We went and watched the fights, like the fights were just starting around here at the time. So we go to the fights, go to the bar, go home, and like we're messing around, and then like I realize there's no patch on her back. And I'm like, what, you know, and she's all, oh, well, I took it off and ate it at the bar. Not thinking anything of it really, you know, just another night.
Stops breathing.
Yeah, so at this time I'm doing this like construction academy course through the job center, and I'm, you know, doing these electrical classes. Well, the next morning I got an electrical deal. I go to it. Like when I woke up, she was like in this weird position, but not like super like, you know, I didn't think really anything of it. Yeah. So like I go eat breakfast, get dressed, blah, blah, blah. And like as I'm getting ready to leave, like I always did, I would give her a kiss, you know. Usually she would wake up, but like we drank the night before, so it wasn't uncommon for her to sleep. And like I kind of like pulled the blanket up because it was kind of shoved down, and I set her phone next to her. I take off to my class. We lived in Soldotna. The class was like towards North Kenai. And yeah, like first break came around, I hadn't had no call from her, nothing, no texts, and like I'm texting her and like got this weird kind of feeling. Class starts up again, you know, and then lunch comes around, and like by this time, like this feeling has been eating at me. No calls, no texts, not answering, and like I'm like, dude, I told my buddy at class, I was like, I gotta go home. Like, there's something wrong. I just had this feeling, dude. And yeah, I haul ass home, get there, and like, she's laying in the same spot, but the thing that's different is like, there's no color to her skin whatsoever. And yeah, like, she was dead. I ended up calling 911 right away. They told me to like, you know, get her body off the bed and start giving her CPR. Well, like, her body was stiff, like rigor mortis had already set in.
Yeah.
She had, like, she must have died, like, either right when I left or just before I left or something. I don't know. But, like, and I didn't know anything about ODs then. I didn't know, you know, the stuff I've learned here at Serenity House.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. About ODs and stuff, like, I wish I would have known that back then, because like I remember when like I was kissed her or whatever and like tucked her in, like I remember hearing this like
Kind of a gargle.
not a gargle but like air leaving her lungs, and I thought she was breathing. Like that was one of my signs of like, oh, she's okay, you know.
Yeah, she's breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now knowing what I know, like I'm thinking that was like the last of her air leaving her lungs or something.
Wow.
Like, she probably could have been saved then, but because I didn't know anything, like, I left. And so, yeah, that was like the start of this huge downward spiral.
Yeah.
I've, yeah, I ended up being laid up for like a couple months, just like crying,
Yeah.
hating life.
Yeah.
My mom was like, I was still on pain pills, but like trying to get off them, and so she would like regulate what I would take every day, and then like, yeah, I remember staring down my 45 a couple times and just being like, I wanted to be with this person, but like at the same time I had these two kids that like, yeah, I didn't want my kids to grow up and, think that they weren't good enough or, something like that. And so, yeah, like, sometime after this couple month period, I'm like, I need to get out of the house. Like, I need to get on from this. And I ended up going over to a friend's house. Just so happens that day his other buddy came over, and they had just gotten their first shipment of methamphetamine in the mail from down in the States. And like, we ended up smoking some of that, and I don't feel no pain anymore. And like, that started this like thing. They started getting shipments in. I'm like, I know how to sell like, I've already got this huge clientele, like, and so I start slanging their meth for them. And between me and one other guy, like, they didn't even have to sell meth. Like, all they did was sit there and do it. And so, like, yeah, we just slung meth. And, yeah, next thing you know, I'm doing all kinds of stupid shit. Run into Homer. I think it was like Memorial Day, and
So at this point, you're not even really a middleman anymore. You're more of a distributor now.
yeah.
So you're upper management.
But I know
You
that
the plug.
like I know that
Upper
like
management.
I can make more money slanging than I can selling in bulk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the time, I'm kind of like greedy. I got this huge clientele. All my customers are like pretty freaking loyal because they know like I give them fair deals at, and it's good stuff all the time. So like, I was,
And you probably at this point don't take half an hour to text back either.
no,
No, you're on point.
yeah. And like, honestly, like, I was kind of so cocky around this time, like, I shut down shop at like 9 o'clock. Like, don't call me after 9. Like, like, I don't know. It was freaking crazy. I don't even know how, like, I managed all of it sometimes. I ended up doing some really stupid and I was borrowing my buddy's BMW 5000 or something, some kind of BMW sports car, run into Homer on Memorial Day, and like, I get pulled over by this cop doing like 75 and a 55.
Yeah.
He, runs everything, gives me a ticket, but like, when he's going through the car, I had a gun that was registered in my name, Taurus 1911, and like, he didn't see no drugs or nothing, so that was like really cool. Well, we go to Homer, party for a night, don't sell no drugs, come back next day. And like, this is like one of my first super near-death experiences that I remember was, I used to blow a lot of glass. And like, that was one thing I loved to do, was like, I'd go buy $30-$40 in bong stems and like blow glass all night. So we get back from Homer, I'm blowing glass. The last thing I remember is like blowing this bubble and it's glowing red. And like, that's it. I don't remember anything else. And it's like, it's probably like 4 o'clock in the morning. And the chick I was sleeping with at the time, like, next thing I remember is her, like, grabbing my leg, shaking it, waking me up. And I'm, like, in this trailer, this big, like, motorhome. And, like, the blowtorch that I was using is on the floor, blowing directly at the cupboards in the motorhome. And there's this curve in the flame, like, keeping the flame, like, I don't know, an inch away from the cupboards. And what caused that was this little 4-inch frickin' fan that's just so happens to be full bore blowing directly at that flame. Like,
Dang.
God moment, you know, like. And so then my next thought is, where's that, bubble I was blowing? Like, I'm talking like a bubble like this, glowing red. And so I'm like, you know, like
Hoping it's
feeling
not
all
on your
around,
leg.
hoping I'm not scorched.
Yeah.
Looking on the floor, don't see nothing that resembles it. And then so I end up finally standing up, and like 3-4 inches into the foam bed, under my is this pipe like melted.
Wow.
I don't know how I came out unscathed, dude. Still to this day.
So you just passed out or something?
Oh yeah, like I'm talking like, and then just like that.
Dang.
That's how that happened. Like, I'm surprised, like, I even remember what I was doing before, but that's literally, like, I think I was tired, and I think I closed my eyes, like, while it was cooling down or something, and just gone. That's, like, what I would do. That's, after my fiance passed away, like, I don't like dreaming anymore. It was nice to stay up so long, and then when you crash, you wouldn't have no bad dreams, you know? You would just wake up, and it was like you're awake. Didn't remember nothing, and you'd think like that would be enough to like rock my socks and like get me to like think about my life, but it didn't. Take off to Homer the next day, get pulled over by the same cop, patrolling the same mile of road, doing 85 and a 55 this time, and just so happens like I had taken a hit of weed.
Dang. Yeah.
Just before he pulled me over.
Yeah. So he's
like,
he's on to you.
Yeah, so he searches the whole car, knows that I have a gun, and I catch 2 Class B and 3 Class C felonies. And at the time, any amount of meth you were caught with, it didn't matter if it was, you know, a tenth. It was a jailable offense. So I ended up going to jail.
And you had quite a bit of stuff on you at that point, or?
Oh yeah, I had a half a pound of weed. Half of that was bagged up. I had fentanyl patch, bottle of Perks, bottle of Hydros, DMT, methamphetamine.
Wow.
And the gun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Probably a scale too, some bags.
Yep. I had it all.
Jeez.
So
that's
the whole.
Being 27 though, and never catching a felony in my life. They gave me an SIS, 5 years probation, which I did not make. Ended up getting. This is when I got introduced to like AA, NA, or whatever, in jail. Met some of these people in my life that like. I believe I met all them and learned all these things like for a reason. Then, you know, like I thought when I did that. I think I went to jail for like 2 months, got out on third party for 8 months, and then went back to jail for like 6 months or so to do this year of time or whatever. I believe like at that time, like I was willing to change my life, and I tried to do this, tried to change it the best I could. Well, yeah, once I got done and got out and I was on probation, like... Spice was really big around then, so I started smoking spice all the time so I could pass my UAs for my PO. That caused a lot of problems. I ended up meeting an old...
That sounds bad for you.
Yeah. I ended up meeting an old friend for...
I mean, meth is bad for you too, but I mean, I think like... So that sounded
Sorry.
stupid. I mean, no, I get it. Like, hey man, that, you shouldn't
think
do that.
meth is
That's
bad.
bad for you.
Well,
but I mean,
spice
it's like
is-
worse than weed, like health-wise. I
Dude,
think
I've
is
heard
what
Well,
I'm.
spice is
what
super
I've
bad
really
herbs. It's
read.
100% synthetic. Like literally, all it is it comes in a spray, and all these people do is they spray it over potpourri or any kind of leafy substance.
Dominia.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
they want to put it on, and you smoke it. So it's literally pretty much a liquid. You know, it's super
So-
synthetic and super bad for you.
When I was on third party for 8 months, JWH18 was the first chemical they came out with to make spice,
Sure.
and like they were gonna make it illegal, so I ordered a load of it online. Ordered all the to make it, and
So,
like
Like
I started making.
dark web.
Yeah, not really. It was legal at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started making that and smoking it and whatever. And I mean, dude, I would smoke the chemical straight, like this powder, straight, like anything to get up, you know, and still pass my
Dangerous,
UAs.
man.
That's way dangerous.
Yeah.
So like for 2 years, I think almost 2.5 years, I successfully did my probation, smoking spice the whole time.
Sure.
In that time, I met an old friend at NA. We skipped an NA meeting. She got pregnant. Like, first time we slept together. Ended up having my son. She was in jail, like, when she went into labor.
Because you skipped the NA meeting and obviously hooked up, but you guys were using too.
No, actually,
you guys were still clean.
I was using spice. She
Yeah.
wouldn't do spice or anything,
Yeah.
but later I ended up finding out like she was getting high with
Sure.
like her aunt and Yeah, we had my son. We're living at my mom's. The spice is causing a problem. My mom kicks me out.
Really?
She's still
so
on.
your mom had been clean for
Yeah.
because you said it took her a year or two to get off the crack, like when
Yeah.
you guys first, you know. So she had been clean for what, 8 years then, or something like that. I mean,
probably like 5
Okay.
years or something.
yeah. And so she's like got her boundaries, man. She's clean.
Yeah.
She's like, sorry, miss me with that.
Yeah, so my girlfriend's still on third party with her. She gets her aunt as another third party. Starts when I'm like living on the streets, kind of hustling, you know, doing what I do, kind
And
of
so
thing.
at this point, when you got kicked out, were you still on some form of probation?
Yeah.
So you.
And
so
my
I was-
PO
'cause this
knew
yeah.
that I was living on the streets, but I was still passing my UAs.
Because were you still doing spice? Because that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I'm thinking you go to the streets, you start selling drugs again to make money.
I was just selling spice, though.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm always selling something.
Yeah.
Like, and at the time, like, I had a lot of scams that we would do. I could go to Home Depot, jack a whole bunch of return it for a Home Depot card, take that Home Depot card, take it over to Safeway. They give you 60 cents on the dollar. So I could go get $400 worth of and turn it into like $325 or
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of scams like that, dude. I was just always had this hustle going. I'm like gonna give my baby mama like my last $100, you know, living on the street. Like that's a lot. Like, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I could do so much with this, but I'm gonna give it to you for diapers and like the whole day. It's this battle of like us trying to hook up so I can give her this money, and I'm finally like in a position where I can meet her, and like I call her phone, and this dude answers the phone, and he's like, "What are you doing bothering my girlfriend?" And I'm like, "What?" Like.
I could ask you
All
the same
day
thing.
this chick's telling me
Hold
she
up.
loves me and all this, and I'm like, she's been seeing this dude this whole other time since she's been living at her aunt's, probably even before. And so that was it. Like I was like, F this, f probation. Like started using meth again, and you know, I did the rest of my time because once I blew my SIS, I think I kept it after the first. Deal. I just pretty much quit checking in with my PO, which was stupid. She told me like your next check-in I was going to give you the paperwork to get off probation early. So like I would have had to do 6 more months and I would have been like off 2 years early or something, 3 years early, whatever. Anyways, I quit checking in with her, started staying at some dealers' houses, you know, like new dealers, so like that didn't really know that I dealt, you know, like I would just kind of helping them out, you know, watching their place, helping them, you know, sell and whatever. And then like after a couple months, something would happen. I'd get picked up and I'd do like a month in jail, which would come off my time. And then like I'd get out, not check in, go straight back at it. You know, I think I got out for like 3 or 4 months and then ended up doing, you know, another 4 months or something. And then eventually I ended up getting popped. I was going to have to do my flat time, like the rest of my time. And I think they were trying to hit me with 2 years or something, or 3 years. But I had to do 2 on the 3. And I had like 21 months racked up at this time. So I ended up saying F it, and I threw a deal at the DA. They denied it. I think it was for like 15 months of my remaining time. And they denied it. Well, I told my lawyer I want to go to open sentencing, where the judge sentences you. There's no deals, no nothing. Mm-hmm. So the next day they have me back in court. I'm sitting there waiting to be sentenced by the judge, and the DA comes at me with this deal for 12 months. And I'm like, what? Like, you just denied a 15-month deal. Like, the next day you're throwing 12 months at me? Like, I'll take it. That time was done like 3 months ago, you know? So, I get out jail that day. No probation, no nothing. And
wow. Dude.
Weird.
I run into an old friend, you know, gives me a really good job working for his dad. And then it was on like Donkey Kong. I think I borrowed like $100 from him that day. Start slanging. We're working full time, like 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, making 3 trips to Anchorage a week. The whole game's like getting bigger. I didn't really dabble in anything else. It was straight methamphetamine. There would be days where like we had been up for so long. I remember like looking at the clock. I'd be like, all right, he should be here in a half hour to pick me up for work. So I'd sit down in a chair, try and like rest my body up a little bit. Next thing you know, like I'm waking up. It's like, 20 minutes before you're supposed to be here for work. And like I'm looking around, like the lightness is the same outside because it's, summertime and whatever. And like I'm waiting, never shows up. Yeah.
Oh man.
Next thing I know, like I was staying at my mom's at the time because I just kind of recently got released out of jail, like, and she didn't know like quite what I was doing yet, Yeah, I'm like, hey mom, has Lonnie showed up here yet? Because like I dozed off for that 10 minutes. Maybe he was here. And she's all, Micah, we like tried to wake you up, It was 12 hours later. Like this span had went by.
Dang.
I ended up like just
Sleeping for like 20 hours or what?
No, it was straight up. It was 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
He was supposed to pick me up at like 7:20 or 7:40 in the morning. It was like 7:40 at night.
Yeah, it's 12
and
hours.
like,
Jeez.
they were trying to wake me up and everything. I didn't even know. Like,
Done.
that's what I would do. That's why I, did the meth thing. I ended up dating this stripper that worked at Charlie's. Freaking, that was all bad.
That was all bad.
Start staying at like all the trap houses around the area. One of the POs, or he wasn't a PO, he did like ankle monitoring, pretrial ankle monitoring, lived above one of the trap houses. Like, I'm like this, I don't know, dude that's living on the streets that wears halfway decent clothes and like a new face. And so like getting asked questions about, all kinds of things. I ended up like hooking up with another girl, kind of starting to like really do things now. The buddy that was getting me stuff, like he didn't have like a handle on it like I did. I started making money within 3 years. Like I had over $50,000 in stuff and whatever. Like had my own property I was renting, had a couple trailers I owned, generators, solar panels, battery banks, like People call my place the compound. And then, like, yeah, I don't know. My place ended up burning down. I lost everything. That should have been like this other eye-opening thing, and it wasn't. Caused a lot of problems between me and my girlfriend that I had been with the last 3.5 years. We ended up, some other things happened. She ended up going to jail because, like, I was trying to kind of, like, fix the relationship when she gets out of jail. Like, I kind of want to get us away from this, like, wreckage of the past, this burnt down property with this that's devastating, you know, all our there. And I get one of my mom's friends to let us stay at her trailer, and in that time, me and my ex end up splitting up. Well, me and my girlfriend at the time ended up splitting up, and, like, I had my next, like, death-defying, should have woken me up kind of thing. Like, I remember I had been up for a couple days. I just got done smoking, and, like, I was like, I need to go to sleep for a little while, you know? And so I remember starting a fire and then kind of kicking back, passing out. Next thing you know, like, and usually, like, I wouldn't, these other stories I've told you, I'm not wakeable. Like, unless I'm ready to wake up, I don't wake up. And, like, I don't know, about a half hour after I had passed out, like, I remember, like, feeling all this heat on me. It's almost like someone woke me up, but nobody was there to wake me up, you know what I'm saying? And I opened my eyes, and I remember just seeing these two pillars of fire. And, like at the time, like, in that flash of a second, I was like, oh my God, I'm being judged. Like, I'm at the gates of hell. Like, you know, this is it. Like, this was my life, you know, done story. And then, like, you know, the next couple seconds go around, and I'm like, holy shit, this place is on fire. Like, the fireplace was, like, too close to the wall kind of thing. The barrier or whatever that protects the wall, like, the wall behind it was on fire. And so, yeah, I, like, panic, go grab a hose, put the shit out. There wasn't much damage or nothing, but, like, I ended up going to jail again because the last time I got released from jail, I was supposed to do, like, get an assessment. That was one of my cop-outs. Like, whenever they would be like, oh, well, you need to do treatment, I would be like, you can't tell me I need to do treatment. Like, only a counselor can tell me that. I'll go get an assessment, you know? And so...
and then never show up to your assessment?
Well, a lot of times I would, and, like, I would manipulate the person doing it, and, you know, they would be like, oh, you need this many classes. And I would comply with that, you know, and then get off. Because I think it had been so long waiting to get the assessment, they were so booked up, like, eventually I just quit calling. A couple months goes by, and, like... I'm off the burnt down property. I'm not staying with the lady in Clam Gulch anymore. I'm staying at a friend's house, and, like, end up getting picked up on a warrant that's, like, several months old. Some bogus, like, trying to help somebody out kind of thing. Car runs out of gas. Walking back to my buddy's house. And, yeah. I end up getting picked up because the dude I was helping was drunk, caused this scene at this store. I'm like, F this, I'm out, and I'm walking literally, like, I don't know, an eighth of a mile from my friend's house, and this cop pulls up with that drunk dude in the back of the car. I'm just like, oh, F. So anyways, like, this time, like, I had gotten off of so many charges, you know. When I go to jail, my sentence is, I was looking at a minimum of 4 years, up to 10 years. And so, like, first thing I do, I've been to jail a lot, you know, first thing you do is go bail review, you know, like, let's get this adjusted. My bail was like $10,000 or something. I was like, if I can bail out, you know, I can make some money, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, when I go to the bail review, this was like the eye-opener. The DA said, Your Honor, don't drop his bail. We're going to hit him with 10 years. And I was like, oh, you know. That was like, yeah, that was like, okay, I'm not around anymore. Like, this is it. Like, and all the way up to this time, like, I never seen myself doing anything different. Like, I figured this was always going to be a part of my life. Like, I thought I was going to be the old dude living in the trailer, you know, always looking for that high. And my next thing is like, all right, well, I got all this everywhere, scattered everywhere. Like, I need to get out on third party. I haven't really talked about my dad very much this whole time, but like, so me and my dad don't get along. Never, I mean, we used to, but then like, you know, shit had happened or whatever. And so I hadn't talked to my dad in like 3 years at this time. And like,
And you hit him up, hey dude, can I get 10 G's?
well, no, like, so what happened was, this time in jail, like, I had started looking back on these near-death experiences, all these charges that I had gotten off of, like, by the skin of my teeth. And for some reason, like, one day in jail, I was like, I knew they'd played movies up in the chapel. And, like, one day I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're playing up there. Like, sometimes it was good. And they were having this service. And I, like, was like, you know what? F it, I'm going to go and check it out. And I go and sit down and, like, I don't know, it, like, that kind of opened my eyes to things. And, like, I had to, like, realize, the first realization was that someone was looking out for me. Not only, like, keeping me out of jail for long periods of time, but, like, my life. And, like, then I kind of had to look at, like, nobody could help me at the time. The only person I could even reach out to was my dad. And I had to look at this situation to even, like, get, I don't know, to forgive him enough to even call him to ask him for anything, you know? And I ended up realizing that everything he did because he loved me. You know, he did it to the best of his ability, his capacity or whatever. And I called him up knowing that he's more than likely going to say no. And he ended up, yeah, I was just like, you know, Dad, I know we don't see eye to eye, blah, blah, blah. I know there's a lot of hard and yeah, he ended up third-partying me out for a week, which was horrible, but I got my shit taken care of. And I remanded back to jail. Didn't use any drugs that whole time. Remanded back to jail looking at 10 years. Once I got back to jail, like, my only option is to find a way to get lesser charges. I started looking into my case, looking at the new statutes. Senate Bill 91 was just coming into effect. Found out that the amount that I had was, like, way more than, like, the amount required to charge me with what they did. The only thing that got me off was I didn't have baggies and I didn't have a scale. Everything I had was in one container. And so, like, I got
so you
this.
Didn't get that intent to distribute?
Yeah, I got this mix 2 dropped. And so all they had was a mix 4 on me, which was a misdemeanor. I get out of jail, and the deal that I made, once they dropped the mix 2, the DA said that they wanted me to do inpatient treatment, and instead of pulling that cop out like I always did, I'll go get an assessment. Like, at this time I had seen these things and, you know, whatever, and I agreed to it. And, like, I knew I was, like, 34 years old. Like, I knew I needed to make a change in my life. At this time, all of my kids were in OCS cases. It was, their moms weren't doing super good, and so, like, I had been off for the last 18 years, you know, and I figured it was time to grow up. And so I still, I think, used like 1 or 2 times, 3 times after that. But like, I was trying to, you know, cut it out. And yeah, I came here, filled out the applications, called every day like I was supposed to, and I think it took like a month or something, but they got me in. It was probably the best thing I ever did in my life. Like, I almost guarantee it was the best thing I ever did in my life. Like,
Coming to Serenity.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have 16 months on the 4th,
Nice.
which is super awesome. Never thought I could have done it. All those people that, like, you know, made these impressions in my life prior to this, like, one of my big fears about going to treatment, because I heard all these horror stories about Serenity House or whatever, was like, I'm not going to know anybody there, you know, all this stuff. Like, who can sell drugs in this town for this long and not know over, you know? I ended up knowing, like, over half the freaking people in there,
Yeah.
you know?
That's what we've noticed, man. That's the recovery community here is super connected. Just talking to some other people, and no matter what community you're in, there's always community. You know, it's pretty interesting. Even like in this light of community that a lot of people look at, you know, and kind of not necessarily push aside, but don't really even want to look at at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a side of life that people, they don't want to necessarily like, they don't want to look down on it. They just don't even want to look at it. You know?
Yeah.
It's not something they want to talk about. But it's cool to see like the people that are in it though have found their connectivity, and because you know like it is like selling drugs for so long and being in that, like you said, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you get roped in with a lot of the same people, a lot of the same things, a lot of
It's
like-minded
hard to get
people.
out.
Yeah, in a community.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that. You know, I was afraid I wasn't going to see anybody. Then you get here and you see a bunch of people you know. So it's like this big transition. No matter where you go, you know, life's brought you there for a reason. Like there's people that are in your exact same situation here. There's people that you know here, and that it is still a big community regardless of where you're at, as long as you're willing to be a part of it.
This disease, like, it affects everybody in one aspect or another. And, like, you know how they say, like, the first thing I had to change was everything? Like, that's what I had to do. Literally, like, I was scared. I think it was after, like, 30 days, you know, Serenity House was like, well, you know, are you ready to go yet? You know? And I'm like, nah, I'm not ready to go, you know. More time passes. Like, I ended up staying there, like, 56 days. And the only reason I honestly left and said that I was ready to go was because, like, at the time, like, you could smoke cigarettes there. The day before I got out, like, they were going to quit smoking there. And so I was like, all right, I better get out. You know?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold up.
The only reason I
That's
even
the
agreed to
kicker
come
there.
here was because you could smoke cigarettes here. Like, otherwise I wouldn't have done it. And
Wow.
so, like,
That's crazy.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
everything
I think
happens.
cigarettes for a lot of people in recovery that we've talked to, you know, it seems like it's that acceptable vice you get to hold on to, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
from that perspective, it's one of those things like, man, all I want to do is get high. All I want to do is, you know, I just want to put my patch on. I just, you know, just a hit, you know, just a point. Like if I just get my hands on a point, you know what I mean? And it's like, but then you get here, like, I can't do any drugs. I can't get high. They don't let me drink, dude. At least just let me have a cigarette. So like,
The whole thing.
I can totally understand that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these people aren't even gonna let me smoke, bro. Like there's just not people I don't even want to hang out with. You know, for
When I was,
56 days.
When I was 16, I did 30 days inpatient in a facility in Montana, and you could smoke cigarettes, but the teenagers, because I was in like an adult facility, but they wouldn't let teenagers, but you could get a special permission from your parents. And I was pissed at my mom. Like I was so pissed. I was like, you better give me permission. Like I'm gonna stop doing drugs. Like the least you can do is let me smoke some cigs. And she's like, you are 16. You are not smoking cigs. And I'm like, this person's mom, when he went to rehab, she signed for him. No, I had a homie that had gone to rehab like a couple times by now.
Oh my
and
gosh.
his mom always signed. And I was like, well, this mom, like, let this guy, like, he got to. Well, you're not gonna get to. You're not gonna get to. Well, obviously, bro, like you go outside, like there's all these dudes in recovery
Smokers.
smoking a cigarette. They're like, and obviously you know who to hit up and who not to. Like one,
Yep.
like and so they'd be like, hey, George, like, let me get a couple drags of that. Oh, okay, like just. just like ripping it, dude. I've never like tried to smoke anything that fast in my life until it was like banned at rehab. So yeah,
Working
I
on a
get that,
one-hitter
dude. That's,
cigarette.
it was like, yeah. So, dude, I get that, man. Like, it was like so. I just remember being so mad at my mom. So yeah, I get that, dude. You're like, okay, all I got right now, I'm like going through all this crap. All I got is like to be able to smoke a cigarette, and now it's like, yeah, guys, that's gonna be done tomorrow. You're like, well, folks, I think I'm feeling good, man. I got the stuff.
Yeah,
I'm a good sponsor.
56 days.
56
Exactly.
Yeah.
Still, like, usually they want you to have your 4th and 5th step done before you leave, and like I think I was like halfway through it, and I was like, sure, I'll take off.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, that cautiousness I had, there was things I was trying to hold on to, like, at first, because I was a dealer. Like, I didn't want to get rid of all my phone numbers. Like, I didn't want to change my phone number. I wanted that option for someone to call me, so like I could go get f***ed up again. But what I ended up realizing was like that fear that I started developing about going back out and using was healthy. And then so these recommendations that my sponsor and stuff was giving me was like stuff I could do to prevent these things that I was like still in the back of my mind wanting to hold on to. So that's what I did was I changed my phone number. I went through, deleted, I don't know how many phone numbers, Facebook people, like everything. I was living with this lady that went to a church, and like that was like changed my environment. I made recovery in a way my life for a good solid like 6 months. Like I was living in Sterling, would catch a ride into town every day, hit yoga meditation, hit the morning group, stay in town, hit the night group or a night meeting. I would always hit the nooner meeting every day. On, Seeking Safety Night, I would walk to K Beach from Soldotna and hit that. And, like, I did nothing but groups and meetings and counseling and yoga and meditation for, like, 6 months.
And that seems to be a really common theme about people who do overcome is that they do 100%. Even the stuff that doesn't seem like there's really a point to it. It's like, oh, I already went to a meeting this morning. Like, do I really need to go to another one? But when people really give it 100%, it seems to just be overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, when that first 6 months, like, I was doing anywhere from 11 to 13 groups a week. I think the requirement was, like, I don't know, 6 or something.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I was doing like between 7 and 9 meetings a week. And sometimes, dude, I would hit 3 of those in like a day. Like I'd do the nooner, do a night meeting, and then like that one would get done right before another night meeting, so I'd go and hit that one. And like being Kenai, not knowing how I'm going to get back to Sterling, and like something would just work out. Like because I walked everywhere, like everybody who always says, don't follow your will, like follow God's will. And I'm like, well, how do you know what's God's will? How do you follow this? Like, if I'm thinking of it in my head, doesn't that make it my will? So then like one of the ways I learned to practice this was like, instead of going around and asking for rides, that I chose, like I would just start walking. And then like, after I'd get tired of walking, I would be like, literally like out loud, walking down the road, I'd be like, God, I could really use a ride right now. And I think the fastest time that a ride pulled over was like 20 seconds. The longest it ever took was like about 10 minutes. But I probably did that over 30 times. And every time, like more than 90% of the time, it would probably be within 5 minutes. Every time someone would pull over. And like, I always knew that whoever that person was someone that God put in my life, Some of them were old friends. Some of them were old using friends. But like, when that happened, like I was strong enough in my recovery to where like all I could do was tell them what good I was getting in my life, all the benefits and stuff, and like spread the message, you know. One of them was like my sister that I hadn't seen in like, 10 plus years, like just
Wow.
whoever it was always somebody that like I would guess I was ready to see at that time. And like, I don't know, eventually that ended up fading out. I don't really go to meetings much anymore. But like all this stuff from my recovery is paying off. And like, I don't know, I think one of the things that makes it so kind of easy for me is I'm like really grateful for what I have. Like, I had never really been much in my kids' lives, and now like my daughters are living with me. Like, my son's getting ready to move in, and I'm the only like completely clean person in their life.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to be able to set this example for them and to like be there,
incredible.
you know.
That's incredible.
I'm still not like a super healthy person. Like, I still listen to all the freaking music that I used to listen to before. Like, I look at it in a different light, definitely. Like, before when I would listen to it, like, it was like, yeah, this is what I do, Now it's like,
no.
I like this song, but like, I'm glad I don't live that life anymore, One song I've really been like really digging lately is this guy named Madchild. He's a Canadian rapper, and like he sings a song called Painful Skies, and like I feel like it's my life. Like, this Madchild used to be really addicted to drugs, and like now he's clean or whatever, and like that's what it's about. It's about like, you're not the man you used to be, and you're still not yet the man that you're becoming. And like, I love it, dude. It's super like inspiring, and I just feel like that's my life now. Like, I'm on this path of greatness in a way where like I can become the man that I've always wanted to be, to where like all the way up until I got clean, like I was only ever given half. Like, that was one thing that like my sponsor said that really made me like, kind of think about things. Like, when I first did my first like steps, like 1, 2, 3, it started making me look at my life in a different light. Because like before, I was a halfway decent person. Like, I didn't steal from people, like I gave everybody a fair deal. I didn't rip people off, and so like I'm pretty good, like most people liked me, And then doing those first couple steps, 4 steps or whatever, like my sponsor kind of made me realize like I used people. I took advantage of them. I held them up to a standard that I didn't hold myself. The jobs that like I lost, like I was a hard ass worker, but I never gave it my all because I was fucked up all the time, Yeah. So it started making me see me for what I really was, not this like image that I thought I was.
Yeah.
And those first 4 steps like really just weighed heavy on me. Like, people have this pyramid of wreckage that they create under themselves. Like, you're a drug user, you steal and hurt all these people like that are connected to you, and then like it kind of trickles down into this pyramid, right?
People connected to them or
Yeah,
her. Yeah.
Kids, whatnot.
Chain of pain.
When you're like a dealer, you have this pyramid that's like Giza, dude. It's like huge. And because what you do affects these people, which affects these people, which affects these people, and it's like, it's set in heavy on me. And like, I realized that these things I thought that made me a super awesome person, really, in a different light, yeah, they would have.
Yeah.
But in this light, all it did was cause more wreckage, more pain.
Yeah.
It was fake. And so now today, like, I want to take all these good qualities that I have and use them to do good. Like, now I try and help people whenever I can. You know, like if I see somebody that is putting in the effort to do good themselves and to get on that better path, like I'll do whatever I can for that person, you know? Give them a ride to work, take them, help them move, whatever, like it doesn't matter. So, and I like that. Like, I like my life today. I'm content being bored, which was one of my biggest things for using before. Was like, if I was bored, it's like, man, I need to get up, you know, like we need to make this fun somehow. And now, like, I'm content being bored, which is something I never thought I would ever be, you know. It was hard to live with myself.
Yeah, I
as a
mean,
person.
yeah, so I was going to say, you know, that's one of the things that I've had to think about too, is like, because sometimes I'll get bored and like I'm super okay with it, and then other times I'm not okay with it, and I'm like, why the difference? I think sometimes, you know, when you are bored, like, you got to be with you. And
Yeah.
maybe some days you like yourself, and some days you're not really digging it, you know? And I think, like, when you say, like, I'm content with being bored, it's just like, one way to say it is like, you're kind of content to be with you, which I think is huge, you know? Like, that's big.
It's a big step for real.
Because it sounds like, you know, a lot of people, they're that are using heavily or, you know, do that a lot, like they're not very content to just be with them, you know, and they need to numb out, they need to be like in some kind of like party dynamic or something, but like being alone and feeling your feelings and thinking your own thoughts, like that's hard. And now like you're kind of there.
Yep.
Which is big.
I mean, I don't even, in a sense it is, but I don't even think that's strictly for people in recovery thing either.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
I think that spans wide. You know, some people bury themselves in work, some people bury themselves in their families, or just find a way to not have to think about themselves and the things they actually want to deal with. You know what I mean? Some people just, you know, choose to bury themselves in a different way. You know, you choose not to feel in a different way. Drugs are a great way not to feel.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they're stigmatized. And it is, I guess, different than burying yourself in work and burying yourself in this, because you become successful in a societal setting if you bury yourself in work, or if you bury yourself in your family, then, you know, you're a super mom, or you're, you know, the CEO or whatever. But in a very raw form, people,
It's all treating the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an unwillingness to just self-reflect, be honest with yourself, and then actually make a real change within yourself.
Sure.
Versus just covering something up.
So you're pretty much what you're saying is that same person that's a workaholic, if at some point in their life, if they would have, you know, hurt their back and got on pain meds or whatever, you know, and made that decision to take that first drug, like their lives could have been a whole different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
thing.
there's a whole new vice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whole new vice. Yeah.
Like,
Interesting.
you'll see a lot of these things about, is drug addiction a disease or is it a choice? And like, these people just battle it out like it's a disease, it's a choice, it's a disease, it's a choice. You know what? It's both.
Yeah.
It's a disease that starts with a choice. Like,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, like at that same time, the only way to cure that is to make another choice. And it's a choice that starts the whole rest of your life of making good choices. Like, not necessarily all the time, but like making the choice not to pick up that drug. That's like the only thing that I do now is like, I've been clean for like almost 16 months now. And there's still not a day that doesn't go by to where like, I don't think about that stuff, you know? But like, everything I've received, all the good, like, I used to live every day with pain because of my bulged and herniated disc. Like, every day I would wake up with pain. And like, I don't know, for a long time, I remember all I would do is pray about, for like, cause I'm ADHD and everything, like I would pray for God to heal my brain and my body. And like, you know, and then I would thank him for all the good he's done for other people and me and whatnot. And I would pray for other people that needed it. Now, like, I don't wake up with pain.
Wow. Well, Ninja, that was awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming and recording with us today. And it was awesome to hear your story, and and it's definitely going to impact some people and in their own recovery as well. Thank you very much for listening. This was You and I for the Kenai.